Hey guys, today we're going to discuss the difference between the Acorn, Bruno, and the Leaf Home Comfort Straight Lift. First we'll discuss the drivetrains, how these things get you up and down the stairs. With Acorn, they use a traditional chain and sprocket type system, similar to the chain and sprocket you have on your bicycle. Now, obviously, chains can come off, chains can stretch, they can rust, they can break, they do need lubricants. Also, with belts and pulleys, belts need to stay tensioned, belts can dry rot, belts can break. So what we did was a little bit differently, where we just use a nylon worm gear, and it's running on nylon teeth, as you can see here. All we do is turn the gear, and that's going to take you up the stairs safely and smoothly. You really can't get a more smooth ride. Basically what we're doing here is just turning a screw into a hole. And we kept this just that simple. Kind of like the drill in your garage. How reliable has that drill in your garage been for you, right? Never had to replace that. Because all it's doing is turning a screw into a hole. Um, the other thing we did here is, because we're connecting the motor right to the gear, we eliminated any sort of drivetrain. Now, the drivetrain of the Bruno and Acorn would be that chain or that belt. Now, if you know anything about cars, you know the drivetrain eats up horsepower. So with a car, you have so much horsepower under the hood, and you have so much horsepower at the wheels because the drivetrain eats up a lot of that horsepower. When you put the motor right to the wheels, just like the Tesla, you don't lose any horsepower to the drivetrain. Also, if that motor's not working as hard because it has no drivetrain to pull up and down the stairs along with you, it's probably going to be a little quieter, right? So that's why the Comfort Straight Lift is the most powerful and quietest lift on the market. And again, when you're just going up the stairs by turning, a screw, it's going to give you a much smoother ride than a belt or a chain pulling you up those stairs. Also, with when you're dealing with sprockets and gears and stuff like that, with one of these systems, you're only contacting the rail about that much. With the worm gear, you have about 4 inches of contact to that rail at all times. Also, one of the problems with these other chairs is they bolt the chassis together. So when you bolt a chassis together, it's just not as strong as welding. So what can happen is if you're not perfectly centered and stay perfectly still on that chair, if you lean forward or back, that chair can rub into itself. It could actually bind up and stop from moving. So what we did is we welded our chassis together, and that makes for a much stronger chair. You could actually sit right on the lip of our chair and it's still not going to dig into itself or bind up or slow down at all. And because there's no drivetrain, that motor is not working as hard. Guess what happens to your batteries? Your batteries are going to last longer, which, all these chairs run on batteries. So in case you lost power or something, you're never stuck downstairs or upstairs. And with the Comfort Straight Lift, we can give you about double the trips up and down the stairs as our competitors because that motor is just simply not working as hard. The other thing with the Comfort Straight Lift is when it folds up. So when you're not using this thing and other people are at the house, we don't want to take up too much of that stairwell, right? So our chair will fold up to 10.5 inches, where our competitors are around 13 to 15 inches, taking up a little bit more room in that stairwell. The other thing is these sensors on these chairs. That is probably the biggest problem with all of these other chairs is the sensors go down. There's not a lot other things to go wrong, but the sensors, when they go down, now your technician with these other companies, they have to come over and they got to check the voltage in all your wires. They got to check relays for all these sensors to make sure, to find out which one is not working. With ours, we actually have a universal access board where my technicians can come plug right in there, and within minutes they can find out any sensor that might be giving us a problem. Our sensors are a lot more reliable though because we are using new technology. What we found with our competitors, they're still kind of using what works back from 1990. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the old days, but I would never trade my cell phone today for a cell phone from 1990, right? That would just be silly. So the other, where they place the motors in these chairs with our competitors, they're basically up under your seat, so that's going to give you, that higher center of gravity. With the motor being connected to the gear right above the rail, you have a much lower sense of gravity, so it's not going to have all that extra weight up there on the chair, being able to lean forward or backwards. um, yep, that's about what I got for you folks. So I hope that helps you out in your next demonstration to kind of go over everything with your customer, let them really understand the difference between cost and value. All right, have a great day. Hope this was helpful.